I now wish to introduce Lesson 30 from Ross on the hiphil. Another of the verbal stems besides the cal, the nifal, the piel, the pual, and the hithpiel will be the hiphil, that is the 6 of 7 common stems found in Hebrew. The distinguishing characteristic of the hiphil is a prefix he, and a distinctive vocalization pattern that will often have a hieric yod in the middle. So here it gives you the basic forms. You have the perfect. If you have pakad as your paradigm verb, it would be hifkid, which would mean he caused to a point or something like that. And then there's the imperfect, which would be yafkid, which would mean he will cause to a point or similar. The vav consecutive is just a vav with a patah and a doubling of that imperfect form, although it does shorten it from a hieric yod with a vowel letter to a serrate, from a long I to a long E. So the vav consecutive form is vayafked rather than what you might have expected, vayafkid. The jussive is like the vav consecutive form, yafked. Notice that the jussive is different than the imperfect, unlike some of the other verbal forms. Here, even in the strong verb, there'll be a different form for the imperfect and the jussive. So this would be may he appoint, cause to appoint, or something like that. And then the coordinative, you have a afkida, let me appoint, or I will appoint. And then the imperative hafked with a prefix he. The he comes back in the hiphil form. It does affect the vowels, though. You get a patah as opposed to the hieric in the perfect, where you also have a he. The participle has a prefix mem with a patah under it. So mafkid, one who causes to appoint. And then the infinitive construct is hafkid. Again, it's like the perfect, except the vowel is going to be a patah as opposed to a hieric. And then the infinitive absolute is similar to the infinitive construct, except the vowel short goes from a long I to a long E, hafked, as opposed to the infinitive construct, which is hafkid. Again, some of the things that you look for. With the perfect, you're looking for a he with a hieric under the he as the prefix theme vowel. With the imperfect, the he is actually replaced by the performative. What you would have originally had would be a form that we see here, ye hafkid, where you actually have the he with a patah under it. But then it does something similar to what the inseparable prepositions do. The he, which is just a little puff of air anyway, kind of gets replaced by the consonant, and instead of getting a vocal shabbat, it's simply the yod or the performative, yod or tav or aleph or whatever, will take the vowel, the patah that was originally under the he. So the original ye hafkid just becomes yafkid. But the distinctive thing that you see is an a vowel under first of all, with a preformative, an a vowel, a patah under that preformative. And in many of the forms, you'll get a hieric yod, though that will not always be the case. Preterite, jussive, and coordinatives, these formulations differ from the normal imperfect that they usually have the vowel serrate rather than hieric yod, though the coordinative retains the hieric yod. The imperative, the hey is prefixed, and the vocalization is the same as the jussive. However, the heric yod appears in the feminine singular and the masculine plural forms. And then the participle, the mem of the participle is prefix. And again, you would have had that sort of thing where it would have originally been a may hafkid, but then the mem replaces the hey, and so you get a mafkid as your participle. And then the infinitive construct and the infinitive absolute both have a hey, but with an A-class vowel followed by an I-class vowel. So here he gives you the paradigm. So with the perfect, again, the endings are otherwise going to be the same as we've seen on all the other stems, the cal, the nifal, the pl, the hifial, the pual, the hithbael. But you get hifkid, he caused someone to appoint, and then hifkida, she caused someone to appoint, and on down the list with the ta and the t and the u and the tem and the ten and the nu, the same endings that you've seen previously. Again, notice in the, at least the third person forms, you get the heric yod, the heric yod, heric yod. Other forms, it goes from a heric yod to a patah, which is not necessarily something you could have anticipated, but that's the way it works. With the imperfect, you'll get the form yafkid. He will cause someone to appoint. But then the performatives are all the same as in the other stems, and the suffixes that occur are the same as well. In most cases, you get the heric yod in these forms, except for the third feminine plural, where you get tafkeda, where instead of getting tafkida, as you might expect, kidna, I should say, you get a tafkedna instead with a sere. Also in the second feminine plural, which is identical. But all the other forms will have that heric yod. And then with the vav consecutives, it behaves as you would expect. Again, if you have an aleph, you cannot double the preformative and you'll get compensatory lengthening. And he gives you the masculine singular and the masculine plural of the jussive here. And he gives you the first common singular and first common plural of the coordinative, which does have the heric yod all the way through. And imperative forms are formed similarly to what you would expect if you take the imperfect and drop the t, so take the second person. So you have tafkid, drop the t, you get aftid, but then you need some sort of consonant for that. And instead of an aleph, it does give you back the hey of the hifial. And so in the imperative, you'll get haf. Well, actually, it'll reduce, it'll go from a heric yod to a sere, hafkade. Though in the feminine singular, you'll get a hafkida, which in the second feminine singular, you do have the heric yod. So it's the rule that you can take the imperative and drop the t comes close doesn't work with the masculine singular, but it does actually work with the other forms, the masculine plural, hafkidu, and the imperative feminine plural, hafkadna. Those all follow the pattern of dropping the t and forming the imperative. And then he gives you all the other forms. So if you just start with mafkid and just add the endings, kamatse for feminine, heric yod mem for masculine plural, ot ending for feminine plural, that gives you all the forms of the imperative. And then he gives you the forms of the infinitive, including one example with a suffix, the infinitive construct with suffix, which would be hafkidka, you're causing to a point, or someone's causing you to be a point to a point, or something like that. Well, it turns out that you can add pronominal suffixes to these forms, just as you can add pronominal suffixes to the other forms that we've seen already. And so here he gives you an example of karab, which means to be near. Hifio would mean to bring someone near. And so you have hikrav tihu, which would be that'd be a first common singular. I caused, and then the who would be the object suffix, him, to come near. I brought him, or it, depending on what the antecedent of who is. I brought him or it near. And the same thing with the other forms. You could add a ni ending to like a form hikrivu, which would mean they brought me near, and on down the list of different forms that you can add as suffixes to the end of these things. With the imperfects usually connected with some sort of an e-vowel, as with the imperfects in cow. And so if I want to say he brought them near, you can take he brought near, which is yakriv, and add the aim at the end, yakrivem. He brought them near, or he will bring them near, imperfect, and then yakritenu, he will bring us near, the new being the us. Or it could also be he brought him near, because that could be a paragogic noon plus a who. So it could be he brought him or it near, if you take the nu as being short for nahu. Well, we'll go to the next video to talk about translating the Hithiel.